I'm very pleased to welcome all of you to India. Although I'm not able to be with you today, I do look forward to the outcomes of the conference and the sharing and learnings from it. Energy access by itself encompasses the concept of inclusivity. And the vision of this government is to create Ujjwal Bharat by ensuring 24/7 power to all by 2019. The Government of India is working with the state governments to prepare state-specific action plans to ensure access to quality power to all existing consumers and all unconnected consumers in phases. One of the most important schemes of the government for inclusive development is the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana for rural electrification. Separation of feeders for supply of electricity will ensure adequate power supply to farmers through dedicated feeders, while ensuring uninterrupted power supply to households. The target is to complete all village electrification by May 2018, and we have already exceeded the target of 5,686 villages for 2015-16 by achieving electrification of 7,108 villages. This government has also moved beyond the formal definition of rural electrification and is committed to cover all households insofar as access to electricity is concerned by 2019. Power for All documents have already been signed by 18 states, and your host state of Rajasthan was one of the first to do so. The Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana is one more landmark scheme for inclusive access to energy. The scheme aims to provide 5 crore LPG connections to BPL households and is to be implemented over 3 years, starting with this one. The scheme would benefit crores of women belonging to the poorest households and will also provide employment to rural youth in the supply chain of cooking gas. Going forward, we welcome all your efforts to mainstream gender and social inclusion challenges in the India energy sector and hope to continue working with ADP in this space. Thank you.
So welcome all 5 of you. The purpose of this session is to lay out what are the current strategies and approaches that each of us have been taking in terms of promoting inclusive energy access and not only talking about access but also affordability and an affordable and clean energy access. So maybe I will start with Rajan, who's been looking at energy issue from the more global perspective and also Asia Pacific wide, and now he's in Istanbul Regional Hub as a global energy policy advisor. Now Rajan, I was looking at the UNDP's website that says 1.3 billion people in the world still have no access to energy, and it's a major task to be dealt with. That means that over 1 in 5 people in the world has no access to energy, now to electricity. Well, how are we dealing with this issue, and what are the strategies that UNDP has been pushing at the moment, and what are the key challenges that you're facing? And if you can also focus on South Asia particularly, that would be appreciated. And then I'm going to go around a similar question to other panelists in terms of what are your strategy for inclusive energy access. I would like you to keep it to 5 minutes initially because we'll have a few rounds of questions, and then towards the end we're going back to the floor for questions and answers. So back to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me thank ADB and its partners for inviting UNDP to share some of our own experiences as well as some of the challenges we continue to face in this field, particularly on gender, and social inclusion in the work that we do, and at the same time trying to benefit from your own experiences. I'm sure the 110 or 120 of us who are sitting here, you bring lots of experience, knowledge, particularly from the ground, which is important for us to understand and appreciate, as well as to try and transform that into strategies, which is what you have been asking, what kind of strategies do we have? But before I go into that, let's look at the numbers again, just so that we can place the whole problem in perspective. Asia Pacific. Let me focus on Asia Pacific first. Electrification increased by 14% from 1990 to 2012. That's a good progress. If you compare that with the world average, it's 9%. So that's Asia Pacific. During the same period, 16% of the population in the region shifted from non-solid fuels to cleaner forms. And global average at that time was 11%. So we have done well. And between 1990 and 2012, 350 million people were connected to electricity, of which 158 million in India, 67 million in China, 50 million in Indonesia, 32 million in Pakistan, 20 million in Bangladesh, 11 million in Thailand, 9 in Philippines, and 7 in Vietnam. So no, the numbers are good. But despite that, if you really look at what's the number that still do not have access, 455 million people in Asia and Pacific still do not have access to electricity. And it's even more staggering, 2.06 billion people still rely primarily on solid fuels for cooking and heating. That's the dimension we have. Now, globally, of course, the number keeps changing. Now the latest figures that has come out from the Sustainable Energy for All initiatives global tracking framework says it's 1.1 billion people globally who still do not have access to electricity, and for cooking energy, it's still 2.06. It's 2.9 billion people who still do not have. Now, the progress on electricity, according to this study that is being done by the Global Tracking Framework, the team that's led by the World Bank, we are making good progress. And if we can accelerate this progress, we will reach the target. But for cooking energy, no. We're actually going backwards, and we really need to rethink. We really need to revisit everything that we have been doing together, so that we can then go back on track for progress and then see how we can reach the 2030 target. But that is the biggest challenge. Electricity, I think we are on safe path at least, but not for cooking energy. And population is adding, is growing. So when we come up with strategies, we just don't look at population as today and then how do we reach them. It's growing every day. People are coming into the world, and so we need to focus on how these strategies actually take into account the growth that's happening. Now, basically, the main challenge that we face is how have we been doing this work in the past? A lot of the time, it has been top-down. It has been supply-driven. We look at the technology, we look at what is needed, and it's okay, we need to do this. Let's go down and implement it. So the top-down strategy has to change. Increasingly, as we discuss with partners, as we work with civil society, as we work with entrepreneurs on the ground, we begin to realize that they understand the issue better. They actually bring good knowledge into the work that we do. So increasingly, as we design new programs in UNDP, and also many of our partners, almost all our partners, are beginning to really think, how are we going to go about doing this from a demand side perspective? That means it has to be demand driven. What do they want? Understand what they want. And for Jesse, gender and social inclusion, it is a lot more important that we pay attention for demand driven initiatives, demand-driven strategies, and no more supply. We cannot sit back and say, we know what they need. We know what they want. There is no such thing. If we knew that, we won't have these numbers even today. Because we have been working in this field for the last 20, 30 years. It's not that we have just started work 2 years, 3 years ago.
What have been your strategy for promoting more, and what has been the success factors and key challenges?
Thank you very much. First, let me thank ADB and its partners for inviting me to participate in this distinguished panel. I'm honored to be here on behalf of Energia. Energia's first key strategy started by changing the context within which we look at both women and marginalized groups. Yes, we recognize that they are victims to the lack of energy access, but more importantly, we try to take a proactive, forward-looking approach by saying that they're really agents of change, and we have to bring them in as central to the solution of the energy revolution that we're all trying to promote. And indeed that the SDGs is setting the framework for doing. So that was one. Secondly, it was looking at energy not as an end in itself, but certainly as an enabler to other important development goals. And the development goal on gender equality and women's empowerment being key. Then setting the context, the third approach was, which is slightly different, I think, from what Rajan said, is actually to say we need a holistic view. It's one. It's not a one-size-fits-all. So both looking at both the supply and the demand side, looking at both electrification, looking at cooking, and indeed looking at mechanical power. And I think this is very much in keeping with the multi dimension of energy access that we have all come to agree upon, and is actually what we have set the SDG framework on. When you look at the multi-tier dimension of energy access, Tier 1 has there are very different interventions for Tier 1 and Tier 2, where you might be looking at off-grid to looking at Tier 5. What we found is our gender and social inclusion approach actually provides is a framework that provides added value when you look at energy access in these three dimensions. The reason being that it allows you to have a more targeted approach. You really look at who is supplying the energy access, who is benefiting, and who is using. So we found that it's provided us scope with doing that. And we found that it was also quite a flexible approach because we could work with our utilities, we could work with our departments of energy and look at their programs and see how we can use what we call a gender mainstreaming strategy on how they are how they can work with gender and social inclusion. But at the same time, it also provided us an opportunity to have a much more targeted approach. And here in the targeted approach, we really focused on the economic development of women and marginalized groups. And by doing this, we try to look at what are key dimensions of that you would need for accessing energy, both on your capacity building, understanding, awareness raising, the adoption and sustainable use, but also on elements like the financing and the access to markets. Which, if you look at the at different tiers from Tier 1 to Tier 5, if you're living in a remote area, or if you're trying to support an industry, which is still very important for development in our country, certainly from the region that I come from in Africa, they're all still important. And linked to this, we found that looking at a multidimensional approach to energy, looking at gender and social inclusion, that partnerships were really, really important. And in this, we have aligned and committed to the sustainable energy for all of which the Asia Development Bank is the hub, together with other partners, is the hub for Asia. And in this, we find why we aligned ourselves and are committed to SE4, because we find it provides a space unlike what we've had before. Energy has been engaged in the space for the past 20 years. We were at the World Summit on Sustainable Energy, where energy was laughed out of the room. We moved to the Commission for Sustainable Development, where energy did come in. But we find within Sustainable Energy for All, we've managed to get the SDGs, and it provides a platform where civil society, where governments, where private sector can come together, can work and can deliver on this challenge.
I'm moving on to the private sector perspectives because it is crucial that we all work together for the sustainable energy for all agenda. And I'd like to ask Arunavo, in terms of you are Tata Cleantech Capital, so it provides financing. It's a joint venture with IFC, and it provides financing for the project that support the clean technology. How would the participation of a company like yours can support this entire market for inclusive energy for all?
First, I'd like to thank ADB and your partners for giving us this opportunity to speak to you. So there is a fundamental difference of Tata from other large corporations in the fact that Tata is essentially owned by trusts. So we have these, so what happens is basically the profits of the operating companies goes back to the trusts. And the trusts invest in activities like energy access. So we do run a very large program in terms of energy access. And let me give you some numbers of why we think it is important. We looked at a World Bank study and we found that every year about $37 billion are spent by the poor people on basically getting access to all the different kinds of energy like candles, petrol, lanterns, batteries, and lighting and cooking devices. So I think the key learning there was that this is not exactly philanthropy. You know, there are these people who are spending huge sums of money, and if you could make a business case for something which is more efficient and effective, it would turn into a commercial proposition. We also see energy as an enabler in its holistic form in terms of education, health, environment, and of course women's empowerment. Then in terms of the type of work we're trying to do, it's not just lighting, but it's also using solar energy as a whole. It could be for heating applications. It would also be for drying in cold storage and many other applications in all its different forms. So essentially the model which Tata has followed so far is, I would say, it's been more on the CSR side rather than on a commercial side, which a company like Tata Cleantech could do. So on the corporate social responsibility side, essentially we have been providing the seed capital, and very often that has been dovetailed with our many Indian government and also the state government schemes in different parts of the country. And while the initial capital comes from from the Tata Trust and from the government sources, government programs, and usually an operating expenditure are recovered from the beneficiaries, so to make these programs self-standing. So I think so that's a little bit different from what Tata Cleantech would do, because Tata Cleantech, we have been funding many of the IPPs in Rajasthan and others, but that's a different ballgame, So and I have some ideas on how we could also make the rural access, the supply of energy to the poor also a commercially viable proposition, but we can talk about that a little later maybe.
I'd like to go back to Arunabo, because we need to ask you more questions in terms of exactly what you mean by corporate social responsibility and what Tata has been doing in terms of corporate social responsibility and in supporting this agenda of inclusive energy. If you can give us a little bit of examples.
I think I did not touch on the gender aspect, when I spoke before. That's because, when we, in the program through our CSR, we do multiple activities. And one which is very closely related is the one on education. As you know, Tata runs a very large IT company called TCS. And the people at the highest level in Tata believe that, when you educate a woman, it's really she educates the family, and she's the catalyst for changing the society. So there is a very large, while we have a focused program on energy, there's also a focused program on education, on adult education, and which does not which does not try to teach, in the traditional way, like you start from, kindergarten and you go up. Here, what they do is, they have some special software by which you train adults some words so that, they can read. And we believe, that is ultimately, a key catalyst for many of the other activities which we are doing, So, in terms of the CSR activity, as I was mentioning, it is the energy activity is also sort of being supported by other activities like in education, and then also now more recently, now we talk about access to internet. So we are also running a program with Google on enabling internet access for the bottom of the pyramid. And of course on the energy side there are these, now cooking has something which has taken the fancy of many of the large multinational oil companies and other energy companies. So there's a lens there. We are working with them. So it's really a multifaceted kind of an approach. So I mean, you can't just be promoting solar energy. To reach the kind of goals which we have been discussing before. You need to supplement it by other things like, and notably, education would be a key part of that.
Yeah, we're kind of moving to the sort of energy plus, right, side, and yes, please, Rajan.
No, actually, I mean, it's a very valid point that you raise. I mean, that's the challenge we always face, and that's the way we want to move forward. I mean, for us, women are change agents, as Sheila just mentioned. They are change agents. They make our job easier. 50% of the population is women. And if we do not target our work to include them, to appreciate the contribution that they can make, then we are missing out. And because they play a bigger role, they are change agents, they actually can contribute to our work. I mean, they can make our work easier, we can reach our goals, our targets much, much easier. And as you said, you rightly said, educate a woman, you educate the whole family. I mean, that's different, So it's so important. For the last 4 years, SC for All, the Sustainable Energy for All initiative has been working on convincing policymakers, decision makers, on understanding that energy is an enabler, it's a development enabler. But today I was really impressed with the statement that was made by the minister. He said, energy is a measurement of development. He goes a step beyond. If we can really make sure energy is a measurement of development, I think we are getting there. And that's a very, very positive statement. I really appreciated when he made that statement.
Anyone who wants to join on this topic of energy as an enabler? Sheila, you also mentioned that earlier. You want to expand on that and then maybe give some examples of what energy has been doing and so forth.
Well, I think, energy as an enabler, and I think within the context of Sustainable Energy for All, we have recognized that aside from the three main targets that we want to reach, we also have made linkages to nexus issues. And nexus issues being one, women's gender equality and women's empowerment, but also in terms of food security, that is becoming very strong, water, we talked about education as well, and definitely health. I mean, that was, as we are going from the Millennium Development Goals to post-2015, one of the things that we as developing countries have never, I think we should be quite embarrassed, is that we never delivered on the maternal health MDG. And one of the challenges that was identified was actually energy access to maternal health clinics and other things. So I think certainly as an enabler, and being an enabler also means not just looking at the sector, but I think it's looking at who is actually engaged and involved in sustainable energy for all. We've talked about women, but even in different spaces, what we have found in our work, working with 3,000 women entrepreneurs to deliver energy services to 2 million consumers with partners here in the room, in Nepal, Indonesia, and in Africa, is that we actually have to engage other different actors. For instance, I'll give an example of the financing. that traditionally we had gone to, when we started this work, we had thought that we would mainly engage with either microfinancing institutions. We've heard of the stories of how, we've heard of the, I've seen the results of microfinance institutions reaching out to women. But in actual fact, we found that we had to look at different actors. So the savings and cooperative groups, so many different, at many different levels, both at the meso level, also at the micro level, that go beyond just the traditional financing and traditional microfinancing. So bringing those type of actors to the table was really important. So I think creating the enabling environment for us to work on gender and social inclusion is also something that we need to focus on at the policy level, at the investment level, and certainly also at the implementation level as well.
I share a different perspective. Our organization, led by the Nobel laureate Dr. Yunus, whose social business model is practiced in Bangladesh as well as many places in the world. When we talk about the energy of the women, we try to see two things. One, how within the whole effort, within the context and the culture they are in, we can involve them in a better way. Second, how the energy delivered also empowered them. For an example, when we distribute the solar home systems, there is a system, someone has to go and they collect the money in installments. Now we know that women have certain value within his own command area and the culture. So we are making a program where we are making them a collection agent, but they don't really have to go any places, but within the social influence and their habits, they can very easily collect this money. So this is how we are using. At the same time, they are making some income out of it. And as they are more associating with these energy activities, but we are experiencing that they are coming and asking for installing energy to their own small businesses where they can use their activity. So one way, using them, involving them, where they have a better access, they can help the whole program. The other way, they are also coming up and taking to the next level. So we are looking at the grassroots level, really to the bottom of the pyramids, and gradually involving those women forces in energy dissemination, helping the process, as well as helping themselves to take it to the other level. Of course, there are the issues of the health to education. Everything is there, like when we are disseminating the solar drinking water, when we are doing the solar irrigations, the target, so irrigation pumps. The target of each college is having 5,000 pumps within the next few years. So all this will help the food security and all this. But again, the difference probably, we try to see the grassroots levels and involving people in that terms. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, certainly you need to involve all stakeholders at all levels. And this kind of leads me to ask this question to Francesco in terms of involving all kinds of different layers of stakeholders into this, partners, into the agenda of sustainable energy for all and gender and social inclusion within that. Are there any lessons learned or anything you would suggest in ADB's experience in trying to come up with partnerships at the policy, enabling policy level or project level in pushing the just the agenda within the energy sector?
So I think the approach which I hope my other gender colleagues from South Asia agrees with is that partnership is the key, and it really enables you to be very humble. And I think the way we have been operating, at least within the South Asia department, is building partnership within the organization. I know that there's some people from the financial unit of South Asia, from the education unit of South Asia, from the energy unit, and the gender team. So I think internally within each organization, building partnership, credible partnership or collaborations, I think is key to achieve results. Beyond that, I think we have been almost a good listener to the, I hope, to the needs of governments in terms of building partnership with a very hardworking but also very little time utilities and power sector agency. We've been very, I think, strong in building partnership, but at the same time we hope to have listened to, but also in facilitating dialogue between them and civil society organization what we call the partner CSOs, I think it's been a particularly good experience. And beyond that, I think a lesson that, in my opinion, has to be taken with a strong message is really building and listening out to the outside partners. I think the ADB, which I believe still, it's an ADB which is open for business to a sort of broad range of networks, which are mostly represented in different ways in this room and also on the table. We learn not to be, for instance, afraid of technology by simply linking out to engineers with a heart, like Rihanna, or say the University of Melbourne. So I think we can walk the talk by partners, and when we identify areas of weakness, I think there's a whole gamut of practitioners able to strengthen the impact of any organization, including obviously ours.
Thank you. On a related note, I'd like to ask the final question to Arunavo. In terms of the private sector's role in general in pushing this agenda, one thing is to do corporate social responsibility, but you were saying also, it's still not commercially viable in terms of coming up with a new technology and so on. But how can we provide a good enabling public-private partnership in that? And where do we stand now? And then do we need to continue to, the government needs continuously the subsidy, and what is that situation for that?
Well, as I said before, the bottom of the pyramid is anyway spending something like $37 billion, right, on energy. So it's not that currently the energy or the needs are being met free of cost. So if you could have a commercial solution which could give it at a much lower cost, then I think the beneficiaries would accept it. But sticking to solar, what we did a study of a few years ago, and we found that actually, if you are, say, you're at a distance of say more than 40 kilometers from the nearest grid, and with the current, the solar rates after the lowering in price of the solar panels, it would actually be more commercially viable to have decentralized off-grid solar solutions than taking the wire from a large, fossil-fired coal facility or a fossil-fired facility to a remote village. So, if there could be a planning with the utility company, both at the state level and maybe at the center, you could actually earmark some areas which could be served by off-grid solutions, and you don't attempt to take a centralized solution there. So, because when you see there have been instances if you see from a private sector point of view, if you go ahead, put your money and you build say a microgrid feeding different kinds of renewables in a particular area, and then 6 months later the grid client comes in, then that creates a lot of confusion. So I think upfront, if you know that that off-grid solution is a better one, and so then I think it would attract commercial investors to come over there. And I think once it's there, of course, you need to work with stakeholders. We often do a lot of work with the World Bank, and the term I learned there was this multi-stakeholder platform. But I think being on the field, I mean, you realize that the sort of the significance of the terminology. And lastly, I would say one thing, just going back to the CSR example, if you talk to our Tata Trust, we are known for our governance, and actually, they are flush with funds. The reality is they're flush with funds to do, but they don't find people like, him, who would actually go and implement the solution. So we have a few companies like the Selcos, and you might have heard of the Selco Foundation. Then also there's that Grameen Urja, educated people who are going out and setting up these companies because they see a business opportunity and to meet a immediate need. So again, that perspective should be kept in mind. It's not just money we are looking at.
Excellent suggestion. Thank you. Rajan, you have something very quick because I want to open up the floor very quickly, okay?
Yeah, I just want to challenge the group. He said there are not enough people like the private sector people out there who can innovate, who can incubate. You tell me there are not enough people out there. I think there are lots of them. There are a lot of, I mean, that's the work that we have been doing. You know, we realize we have a big policy center in Istanbul called Private Sector in Development. I mean, that's the only way forward. We believe there is no more government taking control or UN organizations taking control. Development, the big development partners, no, we cannot play the role. It has to be private sector that has to lead. And we feel that this private sector not only lies with people who have a lot of experience like Tata, but actually the young entrepreneurs, the new entrepreneurs who are there with the community. You have the pulse of the community. You understand what the community wants and needs and how it should be done. And that is what we want to nurture. And that's what private sector in development, the UNDP Policy Center is focusing on. How do we nurture, incubate this group and for them to take on the role?
We're very fortunate actually to have the time to opening up the floor. Who wants to go first? Questions? I'll pick first three. So you. Could you identify yourself very quickly, and then we'll take all three questions at the same time. Please approach the microphone.
Hi, my name is Anurag. I work with SEVA, Self-Employed Women's Association. And Arunava, I would like to talk to you during coffee. Here is an organization looking for funding.
Very good. Please approach the microphone.
This is Purushottam Shrestha, representing Center for Technology Nepal. Actually, this organization has been engaged for the last 27 years in this renewable energy sector, focusing on the general mainstream. Well, I have two questions. The first question goes to Tata Clean Technical Capital. You have already said that you have spent $37 billion, just to provide this sort of support to the poor people. And so, in what form actually you have spent this big amount of money? That's one. And another thing is that you see. Do you feel that really this money really goes to the very needy people, very poorest people? That's my queries. And second, another query is that that goes to Gramin Shakti Bangladesh. I think this is one of the microfinance institutions. Definitely, this microfinance institutions is gender friendly, especially women friendly, because the microfinance development banks, they directly go to the women and provide the credit. As far as interest is concerned, because microfinance development bank and microfinance institutions, they are blamed that they have taken much more interest than what the commercial banks, development banks have taken. So it has gone up to even 40%. In some of the countries like Africa, it has gone up to 83%, right? So in this situation, how you are charging interest to the women? And another issue, the duplications, because the clients, the women, because the money is not sufficient from one institution, so they have to go some other institutions also. So because of that, well, in one way they are getting that advantage. In another way, they are misutilizing the loan also. In some of the countries, the one client has taken loan from 14 MFIs, and they are misusing. So instead of progressing, they are enhancing their life. They are just going down their life. So this is the situation. Would you please clarify in these issues? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's one more. Thank you. Keep
Thank
it
you.
short, please.
Yeah, please. My name is Aishwarya Mahajan, and I work with an organization called Aided Action. I work in livelihoods, and we have been trying, and I've been working with Tata, both Trust and Tata Power CSR as well. The solution which we are actually looking at, and I'm happy to see a kind of panel here who can actually help me to reach to those thoughts which are there. When we talk about skilling people, and when we talk about skilling people in energy, yes, with solar there are so many interventions are there, projects are there where we can get, but yes, investment is lot, and then that's the area where we have to explore. Are there any other solutions when we are talking about in terms of air, water, bio, which can also be or which can be taken further, because I really want to understand, and how this can be linked up with, because now we are looking at Skill India, There are startups which are now startup money which has been announced, which can be leveraged. So could you help me to understand that how this can be done and how we can link up with these kind of interventions, because we have been listening how this group can work or help us to reach out to that level. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, I think Anurag, maybe we'll start with you, and then Sohail, and then other people can jump for the last question that was raised.
Okay. The gentleman from Seva, I'm very happy to put you in touch with my colleagues at Trust. They're always looking for people who can go down to the last mile.
I'm not looking for a grant.
That is fine, yeah. That's even better, Okay, and then there's the statement from Mr. Shrestha. I think I'll just clarify, I was just quoting a World Bank study to sort of explain the opportunity at the bottom of the pyramid. The market size, and if you want to put it in commercial terms, is really $37 billion. My boss will be happy to say that I'm going to spend $37 billion. So I hope that clarifies the situation. And yeah.
In fact, I can continue his answer. The 37 billion being spent on the energy. If you look at the called solar home system graph, it is something like just going like this, and then suddenly it goes very steep high. It was talked about that in Bangladesh at that time the disposable income for energy, the rural households were about $8. When your installment, how do you go and sell to them? They don't understand those EMI or down payment or this kind of jargons. You go and tell them, okay, you need to give 1,000 taka or 2,000 taka, and then what? Then you have to give so much money per month. When they feel like that whatever they were expending for their kerosene or any other, because Bangladesh is not a country which is energy starved. They have energy, is all matter of the better access to the energy. So now when the $8 equates one of the reasonable size of the system, then for them it's no more expense. So this is how you can remodel things. This is how this 37 billion being expended can be used for the better access of the energy. So that's his part of the question. On the matter of the microfinance and the interest, frankly, I am a person who mostly involved in the energy sector, not so much in the microfinance, but then again, I'm trying to give the answer. I exactly don't know the interest rate, but I personally feel that the interest rate is not so high. But on the other hand, it's a not-for-profit organization. Whatever the interest rate, or we call it service charges, coming back to the organization. And as far as the Grameen Bank is concerned, those fellow women who are the borrowers, who are even also the director of the bank. So in a way, the dividend or whatever we call the beneficiaries are them. Whatever you pay, it goes back to you. It's not taken as a dividend by any of the directors. So you can question about the model, you can question about what should be interest rate or not, but then it is completely inclusive model. Now coming back to the, what was the second part of the question?
That's the duplication.
Duplication of?
They're taking those from many different.
Oh, okay. So again, I only can shade you on the Grameen Bank's philosophy. Also, there's the energy part you asked about. You have the another part of your questions, or only the duplication?
Yeah, I think the duplication.
Okay, so that's what my understanding is, because it's inclusive and the benefit goes to them. Oh, and the solar home systems. Sorry, I must include that. For solar home systems, it's a different model. We don't call it interest, we call it a service charge. Again, the service charge is fixed by the administrator, and that we believe is less than or equal to the loan the commercial banks is given, distributed in 36 installments, not added up, so much higher rate for as a spread to taking the risks, which any commercial bank otherwise taken huge amount of the collateral, the risk limits and all that, which was not. Maybe when we take the money, who the organization roll out on the field, we're supposed to give certain security to the lender, the institution like EatCall, but we don't take any security from the customers. So it's all the managing the thing on the field and taking risks by ourselves. And for that, the solar home system program is sticking to that. Again, I say we don't say the interest because we call it service just because all these 36 installments, a person every month going there, maintaining the system, supporting them for whatever requirements are, as well as collecting the money. So I don't think there's much for the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, so just to come in the work that we're doing with supporting the 3,000 women entrepreneurs and even more, we have found that in fact this interest rate is a very big issue, that it's a very big barrier and challenge for entrepreneurs, micro and small entrepreneurs, particularly women entrepreneurs, in accessing funds, where interest rates range anything from 20 to, I haven't heard the 40, 80%, but certainly to 40%, and this is across Asia and Africa regions. And different strategies that we have done to try and do this, what we understand from the financial institutions is that it's the risk. They identify micro and small, in particular women, as being too much of a risk. So this is why the interest rate reflects that, and also because they are having to work. The amount of loans that they take, the administration of managing such loans is quite high. So what we have done is actually working with different instruments like loan guarantee funds, where we actually try to mitigate that risk and bring down the interest rate. But the other one again is, I said, bringing different. This has exposed us to looking for other actors in the field. So working with SACCOs, which some of the entrepreneurs can actually be members of these savings and credit groups, where their interest rates are not so high, and they understand, they work directly and closely with the entrepreneurs. So their interest rates and their understanding of the risk is different. So using different instruments to try and bring down the risk, but I think this is certainly a critical area. UN Women in COP21 announced that they are going to, we're very pleased that they have announced that they are going to be starting up a women energy and environmental initiative. And part of that is to really focus on developing the enabling environment, both at the policy level but also at the financing level. Because like we said, when we went into this, we thought that because of the long history of microfinancing, that we're going to find ready financing, first for energy, renewable energy, but also for women, but that was not the case. That we really do have to develop the enabling environment, both at the policy, the planning, and also the finance level. So initiatives like, we're hoping that initiatives like UN Women will get started, and with their partners, they have the convening power to address this. There was a question on skill development, and I think that's a critical question. And yes, there is skill development, I didn't fully understand, but apart from solar, there's skill development both in biogas and the rest. Very much in Asia, that's there. But skill development has to go beyond technical skills. It has to look at other complementary skills. Business development skills, for instance, is very important. Understanding the market is very important. And what we have also found, when you're an entrepreneur, you do have to take risks. You do have to move. If you're looking for markets, you have to move beyond your comfort zone. That when a lot of the women that we're working with, this was quite an issue. So really also building skills on agency and leadership and assertiveness was also very important when you are as part of the skill development. Thank you.
Thank you. The organizers reminded me that there is also a video showing as part of the very end of the session one. So please join me in thanking all the great 5 panelists for the great initial setting of context. Thank you so much.